I'd like to better understand, I'd like to leverage your understanding of the Middle East to see where this is headed to try and get a glimpse of what's going to happen if there is a retaliatory action from Iran. Do you expect this to escalate? Which roles will have the different actors in the Middle East, and how do you expect this to play out in the next few hours?
Well, part of this, of course, as you said, depends on whether Iran is going to retaliate and retaliate soon. We have seen that Iran is a rather cool customer and is not necessarily so beholden to accept the provocation. Of course, one has not occurred of this scale and of this magnitude before, so that remains an open question. Clearly, the Israelis are seeking that provocation. This is a war that Israel wants. This is a war that Netanyahu wants. What we find, of course, is the question coming from Washington. Thus far, it had been presumed that Israel would not attack without Washington's blessing or its coordination. And it seems as though there perhaps is neither in this case, which will then create an atmosphere where President Trump is going to have to wonder whether or not Israel is in fact an ally anymore, if it is acting unilaterally, or whether it was ever an ally in the region at all, if it is seeking to then frustrate American national security interests and American foreign policy abroad. President Trump is going to have to do a lot of backpedaling diplomatically to many of America's other allies in the region, as you said, having recently been on a trip and a tour to countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. So the military aspect and the diplomatic aspect right now are both very open questions.
Saeed, you bring up a point that I want to follow from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent address, that in part of the, first in English, it was pronounced in English, clearly not for a domestic audience. Second, part of what he said was trying to explain that Israel was the tip of the spear, but that that Israeli security interests were aligned with the rest of the world's, and clearly trying to promote or in a way try to enroll the rest of the world in Israeli defense interests. I'd like to get a glimpse of how do you see the rest of the Middle East reacting to such words?
Well, the rest of the Middle East is used to viewing Israel with a cynical eye. I think now the same cynical eye will be on Israel from Western countries, especially the United States. I think along with, as you rightly said, Netanyahu's speech being in English, not in Hebrew, it was also at about the 9 p.m. Eastern hour, which is considered in the United States to be prime time. And it really is reminiscent of the rather cynical execution of the first Gulf War in 1991, when it seemed as though U.S. action seemed to take place starting at 8 p.m. when everybody was in front of their television. So clearly this was for an American audience, the invocation of the Bible, the invocation of Western recent history with World Wars I and II, was designed to go ahead and make the case that Israel was somehow the other on the vanguard of protecting the West. But I think he went too far to go ahead and use this rather hackneyed line that Israel is the little Satan and America is the big Satan. After all, Iranians know quite well that its government has been negotiating with the United States, and we don't see any demonstrations in the streets of Tehran or elsewhere, or any kinds of protestations, which then invoke again the death to America chants that we saw in 1979 after the revolution, for, again, as the Iranians would say, good reason, because of America's support for the despotic Shah. So the rhetoric that Netanyahu is using may have a shelf life that is now expired when it comes to garnering public opinion, with the rare exception perhaps of Christian evangelicals like Ambassador Huckabee, who still categorically support Israel no matter what.
Saeed, thanks.